are in a process that is developing and that is improving and that is moving forward, but not in a new regime. We are in a new era where we have agreed in Paris to take this into an implementation phase of what we have generally agreed on in the UNFCCC, and then what transpired from the COP24 in Katowice, which relates to implementation. We have many things that have been left over from the Katowice conference that we were hoping to achieve a certain level of progress in as we move forward in this process. Now, we certainly are concerned about certain deviations, if you wish, certain lack of interest and enthusiasm in certain aspects of the process. We see issues that are advancing more than other issues, issues that relates to concerns of countries relating or under the G77, which is mainly developing countries, including in relation to the established principle of common but differentiated responsibility, as well as the whole financial system, which is not necessarily moving in the speed that we wanted to move in, and ensuring that the initial commitments that has been agreed on in the convention are still respected and still maintained and still upheld, including the reporting by the Annex I countries, which we see certain countries are not moving forward on this or not providing their reports. These are the main issues, but other key elements also relate to the process. We think and we see that there is a level of mistrust in the process, which necessarily affect our ability to move the process forward and to allow it to develop to the level where we can ensure that we all are ensuring that we are implementing the requirements that our citizens, the peoples of the world expect from us as governments. So we need to retain and maintain and bring back trust to the process, because most of the time in the closed rooms, you feel that mistrust aspect, holding one subject that is dear to one group in order to allow the release of another subject in another room. And I think we all stand to lose if this process does not move the same way it should move in. And we all stand to win, and our people stand the peoples of our globe stand to win if this process is pushed and it implements what governments have agreed on in general. Finally, one aspect that Palestine wishes also to take into consideration in chairing this effort and chairing the group of the G77 is in relation to the fragmentation of the process. We have established this body and the secretariat and all the additional funds and everything that is under this umbrella to look and to maintain the issues related to climate change. The problem now is that we see more and more initiatives taken outside where you have disagreement over certain issues, so you take it outside and you start a completely new initiative. We believe, just like any other international agencies that is assigned the responsibility to implement certain issues, the centrality of climate change issues should be maintained and remain within this process and not fragmented outside. So we'll be keeping an eye on that and ensuring as much as possible that these responsibilities are well kept, and as much as possible that we continue on with the relevance of the. Of course, and I think that is well taken into consideration within the process and within the regime. I mean, we know that fighting climate change starts by personal behavior, and let alone involvement of parties and gatherings and NGOs and businessmen. They are all have stakes. We all have stakes in this as humanity and as human beings. And we all need to be involved and have a part to play. And this is exactly what Katowice is about. So what transpired of the COP24 and what we call the implementation phase is something that is helping in involvement and in ensuring that everybody has stakes into this process. Now again, if we keep holding on in certain aspects of the process, in relation to finance, in relation to the Warsaw implementation mechanism, in relation to issues that are dear to certain group and not move forward, then we are not helping the process, and we are holding back even the involvement and the further encouragement of other parties to take stake into this process and have a role to play, including, of course, NGOs that has been with us in this process since its beginning and have been very active and pushing governments to move forward. And we implore them for that and encourage them to continue on with this, because that's what made the governments take note of. It's the demonstrations in the street and the awareness of our citizens that is helping us and pushing us to move forward in this process. And businesses are our main aspect. I mean, they are major polluters, whether we like it or not, and they have the money and means to ensure that we start reversing what we have started as trends, and that is affecting our globe. The core of the whole idea of the response measures was to address the onset and then severe effects of certain climate events that takes place. And we saw it in several aspects, developing and devastating many economies and many societies, including in the Philippines with the typhoon that took place, including in Dominica, including the drought that is hitting the sub-Saharan region, and many other aspects. So I mean, the whole idea is that we need to push and ensure that this mechanism implements what it was meant to achieve in terms of all the aspects of that, and addresses the concerns of all parties. If that is not taken into consideration, and again, this is again the game of holding back on certain issues. You see things that are moving faster than other issues. This is one of the issues that have been held back for so long, and it's so dear for developing countries and countries that are of interest and have vested interest in ensuring that it is progressing. We see reluctance from our partners to move forward on this issue, which makes it hard for us also and makes the trust less and less in the process. This is why we think that it is important that this issue is allowed to move forward, and what we have agreed on, whether in Paris, which became a major part according to Article 8 of the Paris Agreement, and that the mechanism itself is up and running and functional and is implementing what it was intended to implement. I think it needs to change course from putting forward studies to putting forward, from analyzing the situation to addressing how to mitigate and how to address and the effects on developing countries by means of taking measures to address the climate. Meaning that you need to have a set of recommendations to help countries move forward. I'll give you an example. In terms of technical assistance, in terms of technology transfer, what's needed in that respect? I mean, certain technologies that helps us fight the climate change are too expensive for countries to achieve. So you need the loss and damage body to address this issue and to tell exactly what is required in order to allow countries to move forward into using more solar energy rather than depending on solar fuel. And what is required on the part of each party in this respect. If that is not addressed, if that is not the outcome of this kind of studies, and this is why we see it stalled now. It's not moving forward, unfortunately, because what we aim for is more aspects and means of addressing the problem and recommendations to that effect, rather than just analyzing the situation. We all know what the situation is and the impacts, and there have been so many studies. Now we need to move on to addressing how we can overcome the challenges that face developing countries when they start addressing climate change challenges. A certain level of mistrust in the process that needs to be maintained and retained. And the reason, I don't see any specific reason why it's being held back. It's very dear for developing countries, and we're pushing 100% to have it up and running and functional, and to have the 6 years plan in place. But unfortunately, again, somebody's holding something until some other subject is moving forward. So it's becoming bargaining chips rather than looking at the holistic picture, which is unfortunate in our opinion, but still hope is not lost. We are still working together in this intergovernmental process, and it's not an easy process. We come from different backgrounds, different economies, different situations. So it will take some time to develop, and I hope it will be addressed by COP25. We trust that it will be addressed in COP25.